Hello there, family. Welcome to the Pearls for Diamonds podcast, where we discuss and share our experiences and wisdom to encourage and support your courageous leadership where we all live, learn, and earn. I am your host, Dr. Shelly, and I cannot thank you enough for joining us in this session. Today's episode really does round out Hispanic Heritage Month, and I am so excited to have my colleague and an amazing school leader here. She is the principal of Prospect Continuation High School and Horizons School. She is a wife, a mother, and an amazing school leader doing what is right for all kids in her system. Please join me in welcoming the amazing Melissa Brennan to the family room. Hello there, friend.
Hello, thank you for having me. Happy to be here today.
I'm so excited to have you here, and just watching your growth, even in the few years that we've known each other, has been truly a highlight because you are one of the most hardest working, but also the most reflective and thoughtful leaders I've met in a long time. And I'm just honored to be in space with you and to watch the way that you operate and think about your school. I wish people knew how much your principal and your leaders really do think about their teachers, their classified staff, their parents, their students, their community on a daily basis. You never leave it. And while we're going to work on that, I do want to tell you how much I appreciate watching you lead because it is a beautiful thing. It's a work of art. It really is.
Oh, thank you so much. You just filled my cup.
Oh,
Absolutely. Thank you.
So, as you know, we always start with the journey. We've been on this journey to liberation and thinking about all of these different things that we're doing to lead with an equity lens and with a focus on being culturally proficient, systemically focused leaders. So, share with our listeners, kind of where you are on your journey, where you are today, and what it's kind of meant for you to be on this journey to serve your students and your faculty and even yourself as a leader in this way.
Yeah, my journey, if you had asked me 20 years ago, would I be a principal, I would have started laughing. Yeah, I started in education as a computer technician, which is so strange. I was a work study student in college. I worked in the computer lab all throughout and got hired to be a computer teacher at an elementary school. My mom worked at that elementary school, and they said they couldn't have two blood relatives at the same school. So they put me at a high school, and I was a computer tech there, worked on the computer of a counselor who was doing a counseling group. And I said, I'm going back to school. Went back to school, got a couple credentials and a couple master's degrees, and started as a school counselor. And went to various areas in San Juan Unified, and then got married and moved to this area, laid off in San Ramon and ended up in Mount Diablo, and had a mentor. And this is kind of going to be a theme in my leadership and the work that I want to do, is someone who sees something in you and asks you and kind of plants the seed. And as I was reflecting on the questions, just happens to be women. So that's actually one thing I want to say is women lift up women, and I want to keep that word going. So I'm at Olympic Alliance in Mount Diablo, working as a therapist for students who have severe needs. And this mentor said, hey, you got something there. You want to be on my leadership team? I said, sure. So I worked with her and her leadership team. And then she says, hey, have you ever thought about being an administrator? I said, no, I'm a counselor. And then fast forward, and I end up going to Cal State East Bay and getting a couple more credentials. And then I end up going to Berkeley and focusing with the Principal Leadership Institute and focusing on equity and social justice. And then worked as a VP at Mount Diablo High School for several years, and went to Pine Hollow and was a VP there. And now ended up at All Ed as a principal. And I really think my experience in counseling has really helped me with my alt ed community, because I can sit down with these families who, for some reason, it was just a challenge at a traditional site, being an elementary, middle, or high school. And I can say, I'm in a district and I'm leading schools that have a place for you. So come and join. And I love what I'm doing right now. And I love that I can work with families who need an alternative experience and find a place for them. But really, it was those mentors who saw in me that I had something that had some leadership qualities, and I went out there and worked hard. I would say it took a lot. I had a little baby at the time, but you kind of get this fire in you, and that shapes you to keep going. And even though I feel like I'm only 25, I've been doing it now 23 years. So this is crazy.
Well,
But it's
I'm
been a
always
good
on
journey.
the, let's not get it twisted. I don't feel as old as long as I've been in this bad boy. I still feel like I'm very young.
Exactly. Yeah,
It,
100%. I feel the same way.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah, but
ex-
it's been great.
it really has. It really has. So I thank you for that. So one of the things that we've been talking about, hold on one moment. Okay, I think I got it taken care of. Um, One of the things that we've been talking about is the impact of our heritage and our culture, not just on being women in the
Mhm.
space, but that it's different when you're a woman. It's also different when you're a woman of color. And your challenge, and we've talked about this a
Mhm.
couple of times, is that you're a woman of color who doesn't always present as a woman of color. And so there's always this dynamic.
Exactly.
So I'm going to first of all ask you to share your cultural heritage, and how has your heritage and your identity impacted your journey, especially you being someone who doesn't present as who you actually are?
Yeah, that's really good, and that is probably the most unique challenge because I think sometimes I have to defend that I'm Mexican, and then they'll say, really? Oh, yes. Like, do you want to call my dad? I mean, come on. I think about sometimes changing my name and going by Macias, which was my maiden name growing up. I'm kind of jumping around, but I,
You're
I
fine.
think the richness
Yeah.
of the Hispanic culture, I think we are Mexican American. We were Mexicans living in California and America. I wouldn't say, sometimes they throw around the term Chicano. That's more if they were in the civil rights movement. For me, it was my family immigrated from Jalisco to the Ventura area of California. My parents met at McCloud Air Force Base. My mom presents as white. She's got a lot of European blood. My dad presents as Mexican, but the European blood came out more. So yeah, I'm white. Um,
And being at
the
McClellan,
I
you
guess
might
the
have been there
richness.
when my husband was there. Now that I'm thinking about it, because he's a McClellan Air Force baby, so there might be some connections from being
Oh,
back then.
really?
Yes, and
Yeah, yeah,
he's a little bit older than us, but definitely had that time at McClellan. McClellan was a huge community back then of all these different folks that came from
yeah.
everywhere.
Absolutely. So my grandfather, my mom's father, they lived all over the world, Okinawa, et cetera, et cetera. They were housed in Illinois on the Air Force Base and then moved from Illinois to McLean Air Force Base. My dad joined the Air Force to, you know, better his life and was stationed at McClellan. So my mom was working as a cleaner. She would clean the planes, and my dad was a mechanic. So she was a senior in high school, and he was 5 years older. And they actually got married September after she graduated from high school because he was being shipped off to Vietnam. So
Oh, wow.
that's where it all started. That's where the
That's where
Macias
it
family
all
started. Yeah.
started. How awesome is that? Wow. I didn't know that part of
Yeah.
your story, and that's because that adding that
Yes.
military aspect, it does put a different spin on it because you grow up with all of these different people around you, whereas some folks may not have had that same experience of being in such a diverse environment
Yeah.
coming up.
Yeah, and what was interesting is my grandfather worked through the Conservation Corps and helped with the railroad development in California. And then my dad was definitely a worker bee, went from the Air Force and then went through, worked for the post office for a long time, started as a mail sorter, then got his degree at Sac State as a civil engineer, and then worked for as a civil engineer for the post office for like 30 plus years. So I think one of the parts of our heritage is just this resilience and this work hard. You can start at one level but hard work pays off.
Yes.
And when I think about my first role, here I was a computer tech, and then worked to become a counselor, and then worked to get my admin credential, and now I'm working to hopefully, you know, break some challenges that our students had, and really set some things into play that help these youth have every opportunity they need and all the resources available. So it's just keeping that going, right? Keep going, keep moving, keep fighting, and that will definitely better who you are, right?
Couldn't agree more. And that just speaks to who you are as a leader and why we see that very powerful leadership come from you. One of the things I've noticed about your personality is, you present very, very nice, but Melissa does not play, especially when it comes to her kids and doing what is necessary. She is the kindest person that will let you know exactly what needs to happen. Tell me a little bit about how that kind of, and I don't want to use a stereotype of, Latin women, but that's just who you are. I mean, that you have this very kind persona,
Mhm.
but you are relentless when it comes to kids. How do you balance that as a leader, especially with the stereotype of being Latin firecracker kind of thing that people want to hold? And it's
Oh
like, well,
yeah.
that may be me, but it's really about I'm a staunch supporter of children. And I have high
Yeah.
expectations for my folks. So how do you balance all of that?
Yeah, I would say I do a better job at work than I do at home. So my husband and I are still working on that. That
Right?
fiery Latina comes out of that, needs to run. Um, but and I think that's some growth. I think that that's come with time, right? I like to have all the facts in play before I attack.
That's
And I
true.
say attack nicely, right? Um, I also pick my battles, right? There are things where you say, okay, this isn't a time where I need to elevate. I try and choose what I think is a priority, what's really going to support us. There are things, I'm middle management, so there are some things where you just have to do that, right? You just do what you need to do,
Mm-hmm.
and if there are things that just don't sit well, and then I'll say, okay, I need to do it in a respectful way. Keep students, as my compass, my north compass. I'm going for them, and do it in a way where I say, I really expect that. Help me understand this, how we got here, or let's brainstorm ways we can support students another way. I also try and have a group that I can collaborate with and that I trust and can be vulnerable and say, "Hey, let me run this by you. Am I being cray cray on this, or is this something that I need to bring up?" And then
Right?
I try and be really thoughtful in my intentions of that.
I just want to bring this around so that our listeners know she has just dropped some amazing pearls, y'all. The first pearl that I heard in that was she said she picks her battles. And many times when we get into leadership and we see that there are several things that are going on that need to be addressed, we want to address them all because we believe that that's being thorough. And actually, it's not. I mean, people are going to change very slowly. And so you're going to have to pick your battles and picking those. And this was the second nugget of or pearl for wisdom that she gave us was that she keeps her students as her North Star or her, kind of knowing that that is who she's focused on and serving the adults to meet the needs of the kids. And that was in that third pearl, if you will, that she gave you, that it's really about focusing on the people and doing things in a way that's respectful yet holds high expectations. So I just didn't want y'all to miss. And now you see why I am absolutely, I love working with this woman because those pearls just keep coming and they're naturally part of who you are. That being said, though, those pearls and that building of patience and knowing how to figure out, like, is this a battle? Is this the war? Is this something that I should jump to? Um, um, Comes with time. And part of the way that she gets there comes in that fourth nugget that she dropped, and that she utilizes people on her team to be able to support that decision making, even as something as simple as running things by people or having a formal leadership team. You don't want to lead on your own. You may have a great idea, but realize it doesn't become it's a good idea when you have it. It's a great idea when it comes out of someone else, especially someone from your leadership
Mm-hmm.
team, and they can move it forward. And so, like I said, she's dropping those pearls for wisdom. You just got 4 of them from the amazing Melissa Brennan. And moving forward, like as you think about how you've developed those skills, what was that
Yeah.
journey like? Like when you started out and you were jumping through those, and of course we hit some landmines that
Mm-hmm.
remind us, like, ooh, can you tell us about a couple of those landmines as you were on your journey that helped you learn and be the leader that you are now?
Oh yeah. Well, I think one of the landmines that I'm continuing to work on is I have a tendency to be a people pleaser. And so I'm really working on how that plays into leadership,
Mm,
because you do, when you're a leader, it can be a lonely job.
yes.
Especially if you expect a lot out of people because your kids deserve the best. And I think I needed to come to terms with, not everybody's gonna like me. But I'm hopeful that I'm communicating in a way that everybody will respect me and and know where I'm going and what my goals are. And so I've worked personally a lot on that. I've worked really hard to be clear with my expectations and be kind. I've developed some relationships with my team. I'm going on my 5th year. I think they know that I will give everything I can. So I will try and provide any resources they need. I will be available to them. I will support them, and they got to bring it.
Uh-oh, I think I
and
lost you for
and
a
and
second.
and that was hard because I would leave meetings and question myself: did I come off too strong? Was I too wishy-washy? Or I wouldn't be clear in the beginning and then later be like, "Damn it, why aren't they doing what I need to do?" And I had to reflect on my own work of what that says about me and how I grew up and on just a lot of stuff in that work. So I think that was the first landmine, is exploring the difference between being nice and being kind. I was still working on that, and the ability to say no, and then come back up and be able to really clearly communicate that, like, hey, I'm here, and let's do this.
Right? And
Yeah.
you alluded to this a little bit, and I want, because this is Hispanic Heritage Month, and there are sometimes some things that are cultural norms that can sometimes be barriers for our leadership. So, for example,
Mhm.
with me being of African descent, as a woman leader, and even in our home, like I am taught to be direct and be like you say what you mean and mean what you say, and that's a cultural norm that I grew up with that I actually had to kind of think about and process as I became a leader, because every space doesn't respect or necessitate or even appreciate that direct approach. Sometimes you do need to kind of go around it or allow people the opportunity to kind of figure things out for themselves with some probing questions, and knowing which situation is which is key. What are some of the things that, as a woman of Hispanic heritage, that you had to realize, oh, this might be a barrier. Like I'm gonna
Mm.
have to unlearn this or figure out where to put it.
Oh yeah. I think one is that mama takes on a lot
Yes.
in the home. And I took that on at work too. I mean, there's sometimes when you're like the treasurer, the office manager, the secretary, the teacher, the custodian, and the principal. And that becomes a lot. And then you get home and you have to be a mom, and you're like, I'm totally exhausted. So, one of the things I've worked through, with your support too, is just learning to delegate.
Hmm.
There are certain jobs that only a principal can do, and I need to be mindful of that, and I need to trust my team that has skills and say this is their role. I'll support them in them doing their job and the best that they can, and I've got to really stay focused on what only a principal can do. And that's hard because, like I said, mamas do everything. So it's like, I want you to do it, but can you do it this way? And it's like, nope, nope, nope. I got to trust them to do it in their best way.
Well, that
I
becomes
might be a
another
little
thing
bit
that
of
you
a
have to learn now, right? It's like, first of all, I have to learn to delegate. Then I got
yeah,
to learn to accept the fact that I delegated it and you're not doing it the way I wanted you to do it.
exactly, exactly. So I do think, Hispanic mamas we do. Men are great too, but if that the home is us. You take
Yeah.
care of the kids, you take care of food, you take care of what they're wearing, you take care of make sure they're clean. You're the mama, right? And then
Hmm.
you bring that mama stuff to work too.
And that
Yeah,
will wear you
it
out
can
real
get hard.
quick. And we've talked about that.
Oh
And
yeah,
I appreciate you bringing that up because in many collective cultures, African American culture is very similar. The moms take on a lot at home. And as a female leader, we can very easily translate that into the leadership space and believe that that's leadership. And in actuality, that is management.
right.
It's project management. It is not essentially leadership of
Mhm.
people. And we have to distinguish between
Yeah,
managing a project and the things and the tasks that need to be done and leading an organization, leading people, leading a school, moving in a certain direction or shifting or changing. That's all different. And one of the things that I know we wanted to talk about today is the impact. I mean, you alluded to it earlier that you had several mentors and that
Mhm.
helped you become who you are. And so, a topic that often comes up in women leadership and the concept of sisterhood in the workplace is how do you treat and cultivate true bonds with other successful women leaders? How do you do that? And in a way that, whether it's someone who's helping you or someone whose career you're uplifting or someone that's your peer, you do this very well. I don't even know if you've actually thought about it, but how do you do that?
Yeah, I think I'm really fortunate that I have a lot of just awesome women. We have a group of female principals right now who are just kicking butt and doing really great work. And sometimes I look back and I'm like, wow, I'm part of this group. Like I really respect these ladies. Like they're awesome. Um, so I think I hope that one of the things I do is that I share with them just how great I think they are and how much I value their work.
That's
Um,
a pearl, y'all, just so you
I
know. That is what I mean. I just gotta get that in there because she just you see her just dropping them. But the idea that if you want to be somebody that is contributing, be willing to share. If you want to get help, be willing to give help and share. I just wanted to make sure folks know that that was a pearl that she just dropped.
yeah, and I think I am honest with them. I can be vulnerable with them and just say, hey, this is a new situation I have. Can I pick your brain a little bit? And then make myself available to them too, because we all have different experience and different knowledge. And I can say, hey, yeah, absolutely. So we do. What's so nice is that we connect a lot. These other principals and I, and what I like is just we're just creating this kind of safe space where we can trust each other. We can be vulnerable to each other. What I also like is I don't feel judged around them, which is really unique. I wouldn't say we're in competition. I would say that we're all trying to do the best that we can to serve our students and our community in a way that's positive. And
Hmm.
that's just such a good feeling.
Yes.
Um, yeah, it's great, and it just keeps you motivated, and if we disagree with respect, so we can kind of come at each other like, well, we can go back and forth, but we feel like we come at a side where we both had some input, which is just, it's a
Awesome.
good
And
feeling. It's a
you know,
great
you,
feeling.
you alluded to this concept of conflict, and I want to just stay there for a moment because conflict really does, it's
Yeah.
often that thing that can tear us apart. And as women, honey, we can hold on to some stuff. I got some conflict and some
Oh
grudges
yeah.
going back, I got shoes that are older or are just as old as some of the conflict I had with folks, and I'm
Right.
still holding on to
Yep.
it. It's like I'm still mad. And for what sometimes
Yeah.
you even forget what you're upset about. But you're like, I know I'm
Oh
upset
yeah.
with this person, right? And so, how, when you're
Yeah.
cultivating these female friendships, and some of them will call them the sisterhood of leaders that are in these
Hmm.
spaces and supporting and cultivating one another, like, We couldn't do this without one another. But
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
we always get along. That doesn't mean that everything is, rainbows and unicorns and roses. Sometimes you're right, like you said, we go yin yin, we start going to yin 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 yin, and how do you make sure that that internal conflict even is both productive and also doesn't ruin the friendship and the sisterhood that you've created?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I do want to say, you can't get there with every female. So that's something, I
Pearl,
just want
that's
to
a
say you
pearl,
learn that
y'all.
too with experience.
Please,
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt.
And
I
you'll
just had
learn
to
that.
say.
Your gut will tell you, right? And I've worked on that through my people pleasing too, is because sometimes you go away, say, well, how can I win this person over? I mean, everybody's got to like me. What did
Right.
I do wrong? And then you're exhausted. So you're like, nope. As you get older, you're just like, well, can't move a heavy boulder, and that woman and I aren't going to be best friends, and that's okay. You know. So then you find someone who will listen to you, right?
Right? And that's a huge pearl for wisdom, because not everybody is going to like you, and it has nothing to do with you. It may have absolutely nothing to do with who you are. And we see this so much that people are trying to change and shift and adjust who they are to please someone else, as opposed to just being your wonderful, beautiful self as you are. Doesn't mean you can't grow. Like that's a difference between changing who you are to please someone or for a relationship, and growing through some of the things that, you just need to grow through. Growing in patience, growing in knowledge, growing in skills, growing in capacity to be what you can handle. But we're not going to change who we are at our core. What I love about what you're saying is, like, I'm still a people pleaser. That's who I am. But I've learned to put it in its rightful place and still be able to do the work,
Yeah.
because and it's part of what makes you an amazing person. Because I'm telling you, she's the one that will love on you, but then will also be like, but you did wrong, right? You messed up, right? I care about you and you're awesome, but you're going to have to go back and clean that up.
Right, right. Yeah, so going back, so how I handle it. So with our work with you, Dr. Shelley, I love have the courage to ask questions or the courage to let it go. That's a huge thing. And then don't make assumptions. So I try and not go in with an outcome already formed in my head. And I have to assume that that person was trying to do the best they could with what the knowledge was that they had and what they thought the best was for the student. So I come in hopefully not ready to steamroller them, because if I come in ready to steamroll, it's not going to be good. And then hopefully I show some respect and grace in that conversation. I try, if we're on the phone, I try and put a smile on, because I think you can hear, I think the smile can be communicated through the phone, and that kind of brings down a little bit of a wall.
So y'all know I tried not to
uh,
interrupt her that time. I was at Pearl, just say, like, I know it sounds like a small thing, but when you answer the phone, putting on that cheesy smile, even when people can't see you, it speaks volume. People can hear your smile. And if you don't know that, you know it
Absolutely.
now, because we just told you. But especially if it's a conversation, I know, right? You know it now because I just told you. Um, but especially if it's a conversation that's going to be difficult, where you're going to deliver difficult news,
Mhm.
or where you're not sure about your relationship with that person, just being jovial and kind and approachable can literally make some of the most difficult things that you want to move easier. Along with, like she said earlier, telling people what you like about them and what you believe in them, even if it's someone who you're correcting or who's frustrating you at all for whatever reason. Just being able to say, you know what, um, I really appreciate this and this about you, and not in the compliment sandwich, like I'm buttering you up to, you know, drop the hammer, but in a very genuine way. Just to say, like, I really
Yeah.
appreciate this. Sometimes even calling just for that appreciation. Like, I just want to tell you, I'm appreciating this within you. I'm liking what I'm seeing. And then maybe I'll wait a few more sessions before I'll come and tell them something to shift, but I want them to know, hey, I do appreciate you. So it's just something to think about.
Yeah, And we had some time in our last meeting with all the principals, and another principal was speaking, and I had shared I had worked with her when she was a new teacher, and I couldn't hold it back. I was just like, she is awesome. Like, she is a fantastic leader. Like, look how much she's done, and I love that I'm here next to her. Uh, um, and I was just kind of overcome with the growth that she had made, and I thought, and she's my friend, and we collaborate. How awesome is this? I was like, this is great. Uh,
And you two are literally like, I mean, it's so beautiful because when she mentions that they're not competitive, but they're competitive. Like, it's like, I want you to win, but I want me to win more. And it's this beautiful dichotomy of, and it's amongst all of you, it's all this, like, I want to see you do well, but I want to do better. And I think that sometimes that's the best collaboration and conflict and healthy, competition, if you will, that you can have because it's all love. It's like playing for different teams, but I don't want to see your team lose. You don't have to lose for me to win. And that
right,
mindset
right.
is something that's very different that you'll see amongst the high school principals in Mount Diablo, and that's what I love about your group. And you are at the core of that, along with our friend Courtney and Markel and all the folks that are
Yeah,
there. You all really intentionally create that space for one another.
yeah. Now, if she does something that I think impacts my school, I'm definitely going to call her on it.
Yes, y'all do. And that brings us to, I love that part because remember, they're continuation high school. Olympic is an alternative high school as well. Remember that transfer process between schools can get pretty tenuous. But one of
Oh,
the
yeah.
great things is that building that relationship between each other, now you all can tackle some of those harder conversations and it's not personal. You know that each person is
Absolutely.
coming from a place of wanting to do what's best for the children that they have in front of them at the time. And but sometimes
Hmm.
that also means that I also need to do what's right for my school, and what you want or need and what I need may be in conflict, so we have to figure that out. And that's one of
Yeah,
the beauties of
exactly.
having this sisterhood, if you will, amongst you all as high school principals. And y'all definitely they have their moments, but it's always in good spirits. And so that brings me to kind of my
Yeah.
last couple of questions because our show is about courageous leadership where you live, learn, and earn. And we've talked about the schoolhouse. We've talked about really what that looks like for you personally as a leader, a learning leader, a collaborative leader. But you're also a mom and a wife. How do you
Hmm.
balance leading at
Yep.
school and being a leading lady at home, especially with what you've said about
Yeah.
Hispanic women being everything? And so now you're trying to be everything at school. How does all that balance out?
Yeah, it's not easy. I definitely continue to work on that. What I'm just so fortunate because my husband is and my son are like the backbone. They are my supporters, 100%. So I have to be really intentional to be present in both spaces.
Yeah.
When I'm at work, that it's work the whole time. I sometimes I'll think, oh, I didn't bring my lunch. That's okay. I'll run out and get a hamburger. That never happens. You never leave. I mean, come on. That's your 100% work. And so I try to remember that a job is a job and family for me is number one. And this is the only time that my son will be a child. So I need to be present. I also have to remember that to not take the energy that I have from work home with me to my home because I am sometimes passionate and I'm dealing with a lot of things and answering a million questions. You're kind of on this like adrenaline thing, and then you're bringing it home, and it's not necessarily fair to them because they're like, oh, what the heck is this? And so I have to make sure I unplug, um, make sure that I've kind of grounded myself to be there and to be able to give love and receive love and just be present with two little a little boy and a partner who's fantastic, who's always there. And I need to be like, yeah, I want to treat you just like I treat my staff, which is with respect and trust, et cetera, because it's easy to like take advantage of them. I know that sounds bad, but you're
Oh,
like, you love me. Yeah, I can be snotty, you know? But I can't. I have to fill their cup too and let them know that they're important, that I value them just as much as I do my coworkers, you know, even more because
right.
they're my and my everything, you know, they're my support and my love and the people who are there for me at the end of the day.
Absolutely, and I
Yeah.
love the way you put that, you know, you when you're present at work, you are very present. And some of the things that I've seen you do, like, you know, Melissa always has her food and whatever snacks and such that she needs because that's an important part of taking care of yourself and making sure you have the nutrition and the energy to be able to give your partner and your son that love and affection when you get home to help you last through the day, if you will. You also heard her say that family comes first, and she doesn't want to take out on them some of the frustrations that you see and experience at work, but to give them the same love and attention and grace and empathy and, you know, patience that they deserve, even if it is at the end of the day and you feel like you have nothing left. You got to
Oh,
keep a little bit of a reserve at the end of every day, especially when you have small kids. For example, right now I'm about to get
yeah.
off this podcast and go and make dinner with the family and do all of that and then come back. But we have to make sure that those spaces are kept sacred, and that's up to us. And so she has been dropping pearls the entire time we've been here. For my last question, of course, it's what pearls for wisdom do you have to share with our listeners who may be in a similar place and wanting to be the leaders that they want to be both at work and at home, balance it out, but also be a leading lady amongst your colleagues and your sisterhood, because you know that you need all of this to be whole. If you didn't have your sisterhood, there'd be a piece missing. If you didn't have, you know, that leadership at school, there'd be a
Mhm.
piece missing. And if you didn't have the home life, you would feel like a piece is missing, but balancing it all out is critical.
Oh,
What pearls
absolutely.
for wisdom do you have to share?
Yeah, I think we've hit on some, you brought them up as I was talking, but the first one that comes to mind is don't be afraid to set boundaries. Okay, because boundaries aren't necessarily something you're doing just for yourself. You're teaching people how to treat you as well. Excuse me.
It's
So
okay to
that's
take a
one thing.
moment.
Don't
Take a
be
moment.
afraid
We
to
can
set a
we
boundary.
can edit it out if we have to. So if you need to take a moment, it's all right.
Sorry,
No, it's
talking
all
a
right.
lot.
It
Um,
we can edit all this out. It'll just jump from the question
yeah,
to. But I love what boundaries.
yeah,
That's a huge pearl. Tell me more.
yeah. I think in my people pleasing, that setting boundaries was really hard for me
Mm.
to win. Eventually, I just got exhausted. So then as I'm learning to set boundaries and communicate clearly, things get a little bit easier. It's like, man, I wish I had come in setting those boundaries right away. And I don't mean only boundaries in what your role is or what your job is, but that's boundaries of like last night, we're working on, I have a big PD day on Friday. I look up and it's 6:15. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a late day. I worked longer than I could, but I felt super productive. And I thought, but tomorrow I can't do this because we've got to get the pumpkins carved and I want to be present for my family for Halloween. So today I'm going to be out of the office by 5. And I told myself that this morning. And so then I keep that in my mind. Like that's a boundary I set for me to be present with my family and be able to enjoy Halloween. I'm going to make sure I'm out by 5 o'clock tomorrow. So I'm constantly doing those things to match what my priority is going to be for that day. To just feel a little freer with who I am and being able to be present in all the roles that I have.
Oh my gosh, that is probably the best pearl of all. Please join me in thanking our amazing guest, Melissa Brennan, for being here on the Pearls for Diamonds podcast. We hope that we've been able to shed a little bit of light on what it is to be a courageous leader where you live, learn, and earn by just dropping a few pearls of wisdom to help you on your courageous leadership journey. If you like what you're hearing, please like and share with a friend to support bringing more people into this sacred space. If you need more tailored or individualized support for your school, district, community group, or business, or if you need a keynote speaker for your next event, please visit our website, www.leadershiplegacyconsulting.com, to schedule a discovery call. If you're considering exploring your family leadership deeper, contact us at familylegacy5.com to learn more about our courses, seminars, retreats, and tours to help you be a better leader at home. I am your host, Dr. Shelly, and I thank you for being with us. As always, this work is a labor of love. So if nobody told you they love you today, please know I love you so very much for everything you're doing for yourself, for your family, and especially for our children. I encourage you to go out and make it a great day, but if you can't, don't you dare ruin anybody else's. See y'all next time. Bye-bye.